I see all the tips and tricks that people talk about when they talk about trying to keep their dogs from overheating at shows. But here's the one thing that I don't hear anyone talking about when it comes to dogs overheating at shows and unfortunately sometimes passing away. Stay tuned. What's going on, Bully fam? It's your boy, the educator, the scientist.
What? Oh, hey, it's me.
Mr. Double Muscle Line Bulls, Mrs. Double Muscle Line Bulls, and we're on the road right now, right?
We're gonna get little Junior.
Yep. So he's over at his grandparents right now. Last weekend we were at a show, and I saw. I mean, we're talking about what? We're in February, right?
Yeah.
And in the dead of the winter, in a pretty cold building, you had dogs still overheating.
It was one of the coldest days.
Oh my God! It was the first time.
Negatives.
Yeah, it was the first time I thought I was gonna have frostbite on my fingers from being outside trying to fly the drone. But anyway, and don't mind my voice, guys. I'm a little under the weather. But there was like 3 or 4 dogs that nearly passed because they were overheating. So people are going crazy, and I mind you guys, I haven't been to a show in a very long time. But at these bully shows, these brachycephalic breed type shows, snub nose type shows, they have the lemon juice and the Pedialyte and kind of like cool down centers, which is good, which is great progress, because especially the environment that these dogs are being introduced to and they're not accustomed to it. It's good that people are being mindful of these things now. You know, enough dogs have unfortunately passed for people to want to do something about it. But here's the thing that people don't realize, and there was a dog that was, overheating right in front of me, and they're running and grabbing the lemon juice and the Pedialyte and things like that, and I'm like, that's all fine and dandy, but what people don't talk about and don't realize is anxiety. The overheating sometimes isn't from the dog just being hot. It's anxiety. The dog's not used to being in a room filled with hundreds of people,
along with hundreds of dogs.
The dog is getting all this anxiety built up, and it's causing the dog to get anxiety, shock, overheat, things like that. So you could try your best to cool down the dog, and sometimes that's not enough. Sometimes that's not sufficient because of the fact that the dog has anxiety. So we've had dogs that even at home that would get anxiety.
Unfortunately, with this breed, we've seen at least they can get anxiety 1, 2, 3 without notice, honestly.
Prime example is Diva.
Yeah, perfect example. Diva was the worst with anxiety.
So it just happens. It's a part of the breed. And I mean, I'll tell you, like, when the dog was overheating right in front of me, I told the person, I said, it's great, you're doing the Pedialyte, you're doing all that stuff, you got to get this dog out of here. Get the dog in your car, get the dog away from everyone else, and a little bit more relaxed. The relaxation is what's going to help. Because like I said, the dog gets more anxiety. People now are surrounding around the dog. The dog's already breathing heavy. People are surrounding around the dog now, going crazy. We need to get this dog cooled down, all this stuff. The dog is freaking out. I think that's why they say when somebody passes out, you're not supposed to You're
not supposed to crowd them. You're not supposed to overwhelm them too much, because you need to be able to just have that moment to gather yourself and breathe and take deep breaths and calm yourself down.
Exactly.
Same thing goes for dogs.
Yep.
As crazy as it sounds, it's the same thing for dogs. And unfortunately, with these dogs, because of their anxiety, you may not understand it at first, because maybe was your first dog show. But you have to look at the cues. Sometimes
Oftentimes it's just understanding the situation for its entirety. And like I said, it's one of those things that everybody's bombarding the dog now. The dog is breathing heavy. It's overheating because of the anxiety. Now the dog is getting more anxiety because all these people are bombarding it, pouring stuff all over it, all kinds of stuff like that. But in reality, and I've had this happen, so I'm speaking from experience. I had a dog that we were at a show. When we were at that show over, it was here in Long Island. And anyway, the dog started to overheat. What I did, I didn't even go right to the lemon juice and to the Pedialyte and all that stuff that a lot of you guys already are aware of. No, I took the dog, brought it right to the car. sat with me in the car. We just sat and chilled, and sure enough, the overheating just went away, and the dog slowly started to calm down. So I feel like it's something that's not talked about a lot or enough in the community, and I think people need to be aware of this, especially with the brachycephalic breeds. So with that being said, guys, like, I just want you guys to be mindful of that. And the first thing to look at is if the dog is starting to breathe very heavily. Because when you really use logic and you think about it, if it's in the dead of winter and it's a cold room, I don't really think the dog's going to be overheating. Has to be anxiety, you know? So...
And it's also one of those things you have to take into account. If your dog's not used to being surrounded by hundreds of people, hundreds of other dogs,
yep,
that's something that you really need to take into account, because unfortunately, if it's too late, you're going to lose your dog.
Yep, so that's why some tips and tricks, some things that I suggest that you have and you use when it comes to going to a show, especially, like I said, for these bully shows and things like that. Here's what I would recommend. What I would recommend is giving the dogs possibly some CBD oil before you go. It'll keep them nice, calm, and relaxed. So when they're introduced into that environment, they're already it kind of knocks the edge off a little bit, you know? So that's the first thing. I'll give them some CBD oil. And other than the CBD oil, be mindful that it needs to be a very high strength dosage. I would say almost comparable to humans, because a lot of the CBD that's out there is very, very underdosed and not strong enough. I bought this stuff. If I can find it, I'll put a picture somewhere in here. I bought this stuff, and it was extremely highly dosed. And we had dogs that were, Vito is a prime example. We had dogs that were extremely rambunctious, and it knocked the edge off when we went to the show. Another thing that you could do, believe it or not, that we've done is we had dogs. We had a stud dog that he would want to hump all the time. He'd want to hump all the other dogs. We did a collection from the stud before we went to the show, helped knock the edge off as well. That's another thing you could do. For females and just other dogs in general, what I would also think about doing is you could also bring the dog's crate that the dog is accustomed to and have a blanket, so that then when the dog starts to get a little overwhelmed, you can put the dog in its crate. It'll feel more comfortable. It'll feel more at home. The other thing is maybe, yet again, bringing some of the toys and some of the things that the dog is used to having at home, so it feels a bit more comfortable. And then another thing is, like I said, just be mindful of also, yes, definitely have that Pedialyte and lemon juice, just in case they do start to go into that shock. They do start to go into that overheating scenario where they got phlegm all in their throat, and it's giving them a hard time to breathe now, and all that stuff. So you do want to have those things as well. It's Pedialyte to keep them hydrated. You can give that to them orally. You can even squirt some in their butt, as well as you want to have the lemon juice that squirt in their mouth, so it'll cause the foam to come all out.
And then here's another tip. Also, the green rubbing alcohol.
Yes, the green rubbing alcohol as well. You can put that on their paws and on their armpits, and the evaporation, because it evaporates so fast, it simulates them sweating, which will help cool them down.
Specifically the green
one.
The
mint. That's kind of an old school breeder thing. We use the mint one. We feel that, I believe, it evaporates at a faster rate.
That's definitely
and those are really trick. And those are really the tips and tricks that I would highly recommend. Two of the other biggest things is you have to train your eyes to watch. Keep mind of your dog. Do they look like they're getting stressed out? Do they look like they're getting too hot? You have to use your judgment. And the other part of that is remove the dog from the situation that's giving it anxiety. Take the dog to the car, sit with the dog in the car with the AC, and allow the dog to come down. And that's what's going to help. This could potentially help save your dog's life. I just wanted to cover this real quick because people were going crazy when this dog was overheating in front of me, and they were throwing ice. They were trying to put ice with the dog and stuff like that. That's another one too. My mentor, he had a dog that overheated. He put an ice cube in his butt. Mark put ice cube in his butt.
It worked.
And it worked, but still, all that stuff can kind of play a role in causing the dog to have more anxiety. So my recommendation is, the first thing is get the dog out of that environment and put the dog in the car. Bring the dog somewhere else where there's not as many people, it's not bombarded, and it can slowly start to relax. Put that dog in a wagon Maybe bring a wagon. Put that dog in a wagon and bolt and go somewhere else. Even if you got to go to like a gas station across the street or whatever. Allow the dog to get out of that environment and calm down. I think that's going to be one of the biggest things that could help potentially save a dog's life. Because, I mean, I've been to shows where dogs, unfortunately, have passed in front of me. So at this show here, my advice to them, I said, hey, listen, guys, you got to get this dog out of here. So hope this information was helpful. Hope it was useful for people who go to the shows and things like that. And just, like I said, train your eyes to watch the dog for when he starts to overheat. You'll be able to catch it right away. When I was at the show, I think we saw at least 3 dogs that early on I was able to tell them, I was like, hey, listen, you may want to take the dog to the car, calm him down. He's starting to warm up. He may start overheating. And that's what we did. So anyway, guys, hope this information was helpful. Hope it was useful. We're not far from picking up Junior, so we just figured we'd share this with you guys real quick. And,
quick little tidbit.
Yep, and we'll see you guys on the next episode of Breeders' Hacks.
Bye, guys.